Hi, everybody, and welcome back to On the Roof. Today we have back with us, Dana Fuchs. Welcome, Dana.
Good to be back, Scott.
I'm waiting a long time for this.
Oh, man, it's been a while since we saw each other last. I still had the baby in the belly.
You did, yes. What a year for you, 2016, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Happy it's over?
Yeah, I mean, and people have been saying that because we've also lost, today, Carrie Fisher, Prince, right on my mom's birthday, weeks after she passed. So yeah, it's been a very weird year, and especially a mix, like this Christmas being such, the first without my mom, and then this beautiful blessing of this child. It's just, what a weird mix of feelings, Yeah. So yeah, I'm ready to say goodbye to 2016, start fresh.
And how's motherhood?
Motherhood's amazing. I swear to, everybody says, isn't it hard? And I'm like, is there something wrong because it's not hard yet? Yeah. Knock wood, it's only been barely 4 months that he's been, alive and kicking. So far it's just been such a joy. I get emotional just saying it. I'm in love.
How have you been able to navigate between the priorities? Because I remember when you spoke about your songs as your babies.
Yes.
Now you have a child, yes. Right? So the motherhood and the music and your career is really flying right now. So how have you been able to navigate it all together?
That was a concern. I thought, well, does this mean that's it?
Yeah.
It's all motherhood now. And then I quickly learned that all of one thing is not very healthy, at least not for me. Music is such a part of me that having the baby, and a friend of mine, a musician friend of mine said, you'd be surprised. When you have the baby, you actually make your time more useful because every moment counts more now. So it's like, all right, I gotta write some songs for this new record. Baby's coming with me, nap time, or, I get somebody to take care of him for the afternoon. Yeah. And you just focus a lot more because you don't have this like ambiguous free time anymore. Right. And it's been such a different kind of inspiration. People are asking if I'm gonna start writing happy songs now, and I don't think that's a possibility. Yeah. So it's changed. It's a strange mix of that. It's changed everything, but nothing feels that different. Yeah. I keep thinking, wow, should I feel? It's almost surreal that it doesn't feel that different to just have this little being in my house now.
Yeah. You're a very intriguing woman. In the sense that, because you have so much energy and focus, and yet you seem kind of like so in the moment, like spontaneous at the same time. Do you ever, are you more focused than spontaneous, or is it an issue, or is it an asset, or what?
Great question. Maybe on some level you have to be focused to be spontaneous.
Whoa.
We're getting philosophical here.
I should have had my V8.
But actually, I've never been asked that question. It's such a great question, and now you've got me thinking about it. I think one does depend upon the other, because if you're focused enough on the important things, then you have the freedom for spontaneity.
Right. Does that come out of confidence in
I think it comes out of, I think confidence to me kind of equates experience. So if you have experience with something, you have a little more confidence. Now granted, having a baby, I had no experience, and that just comes natural, and then your natural maternal instincts kick in, and then you have the confidence to say, okay, I can do this and do that. Before the baby came out of me, I was like, how the hell am I going to do anything? Right.
Yeah. So you grew up and you were born in Jersey?
I was born in New Jersey, yep.
And moved to Florida.
When I was 2 years old, I guess. Obviously I don't remember it, but I was 2, and my dad shipped us all down to the middle of nowhere, Wildwood, Florida. I don't even know how he found the city.
And so what was that like growing up there? Is that where you found music? And
Yeah, interestingly enough, I found music because it was a predominantly black town, and it was a very small town, like literally less than 1,500 people. It was more like a village, and it was sort of like the South in that it was a little bit segregated, and you lived on one side of the railroad tracks or the other, really. And growing up, because my parents were from New York and I was the youngest of 6 kids, so my siblings had, especially my oldest brother and sister, they had experience in New York, New Jersey. We were not this like Southern family, and there was not a racist bone in anybody in my family's body, but it was a kind of racist town, and so I really gravitated towards the black kids, and the teachers really took a shining to me. I was like the only white kid on the basketball team at one point, and I had this amazing teacher in first grade who would take me to her house and play me Donna Summer and Ray Charles. My parents were also into that soul music too. So that, and then this little gospel church. We were raised Catholic and there was no Catholic church nearby. So, I found this Black Baptist church, and it was just a place to go to kind of celebrate life, really. It was the happiest people. I remember those church masses, they were all somber. You walk in and people are just singing and dancing, and I was like, okay. Yeah. So, in that regard, being in such a small town where there wasn't really a music scene, of course, I found music. I found my love for rootsy soul gospel music.
Did you want to be a singer at a young age?
I did. My older brother and sister had a band since I can remember, and my first time on stage, I was about 9 years old, and I got up and sang a song with them.
What, do you remember the song?
I believe it was a Whitney Houston song. I go back and forth. Was it the Pointer Sisters or Whitney Houston? But I'm pretty sure it was Whitney, and I just remember the high of just letting out a voice, and I didn't realize the power I had until I sang, and people were like, whoa, she's loud.
Yeah.
And then that feedback from an audience was just, I
was just trying to post, something last night about having you here today. And I was saying, how do I describe her? This is what I came away with. Like as warm as an angel, but with a roar like a lion.
Ooh, I like that.
But because when you perform, you really get into it. I mean, I've said this the last time we spoke. It's amazing how you just let go, and it comes from like really down deep. And it's so natural, it's honest, and that's the thing. I watched last night with the Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg and Sotomayor, and they were just talking themselves, and they were talking about memoirs, and she said the most important thing about it is that it's honest. You can tell honesty when you hear it. And when you perform, it's clear. I mean, this is just, you give it right out there. There's really no pretense.
Thank you, that's a high compliment, because I don't go in there with, okay, I'm going to be honest. I just go in there saying to myself, I'm just going to give what I have tonight and feed off of the audience wherever they're at. I'll find it. That'll mean that's going to shape where I'm going to be at. So it feels like a really in the moment exchange.
It is.
And back to your question, I mean, you do have to have sort of focus and confidence, I think, to just go up there and rely on that feedback, because I remember when I first started performing, I would go in with like a predetermined set and which songs I'm going to do. And I hated that. It was so limiting.
Yeah.
And then I quickly was like, screw that, it's going out the window.
Right. But it's the way you engage with an audience when you perform that makes it more than just a performance. It's more intimate when you're going back and forth with, and people are involved. People are just there to, they're involved instead of just watching you perform.
And that to me is the gift, because I attribute that really to the audience. It's like just real people there, they've got their story, and you look at their faces and you go, God, I actually know this person actually recently lost somebody because they told me at another show. And it's just this amazing connection for me. I feel like I'm the lucky one that gets to just share this experience and say, okay, guys, we're doing this together.
But that's because it's your vehicle. Like you putting yourself out there like that just makes it easier for anybody to relate those personally. A lot of times people don't want to talk about all of that stuff. It's not, when the setting's right, they'll just let it out, but you provide a lot of that, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that part of your objective?
It is in such that, I just remember when it flipped for me, when I thought, okay, I'm probably not going to get rich and famous doing this, so it's got to be meaningful. And if I'm going to get on stage every night and say, here, listen, I want to have something to offer, you know, that just means something to me too. And so it was like, all right, I'll give you all I got, you give me all you got back. It was like this barter that I say this little mantra to myself, let me just move people, let me take them out of their woes, because we all have woes. We all have had probably a really shitty day or year or whatever at some point. Life, right? Exactly. And this is, people are coming to see music to get away for a couple of hours. Yeah. And it's kind of ironic that they come to my show to get away, and we do talk about death and, drugs and addictions. But it's, hopefully I'm trying to do it in a way that's like, leave it all here on the table. Escape the hardship of life by knowing that you're not in this boat alone. So it is sort of my objective every show. Let me just move somebody, make a difference.
It's amazing. So I went a little off there. So now you're, in Florida, you're getting familiar with the music and stuff. So what age were you at where you really decided to think that I'd really dig this?
I pretty much knew before I was even a teenager. I knew, I was like, wow, I have to, because every time my parents would have friends over, I was the obnoxious kid who'd be like, let me sing for you, let me act out this TV commercial. I knew all the hit, like I knew the Raid one, someday I'll sing it for you. Mr. Clean. So I knew that I liked being in front of people and expressing myself that way, and then through singing especially. And I remember my dad was watching Lady Sings the Blues, about the life of Billie Holiday with Diana Ross in it. And I watched it with him, and I was just mesmerized. And I was very young, so I said to him after, I'm gonna move to New York City. Because
mesmerized by what?
The Billie Holiday. Like, obviously Diana Ross was portraying her, but she was lip syncing, thank God. No offense to Diana, but she's no Billie. And I just remember just being haunted by the voice and the life. And of course, everything that she was going through with both oppression of black people, her hardcore life of her mom being a prostitute, raising herself, and then being able to put all of that pain in music. And I was drawn to that darkness, and I said to my dad, I'm gonna go to New York, I'm gonna become a heroin addict and a blues singer. And
that's my girl.
Exactly. And he had to sit me down. Do you understand? You don't have to do the drugs to do this. But I've always been drawn to dark sides of people, the dark stories that make them tick. Yeah. So no, I didn't become a heroin addict. I did share of other drugs, but.
Okay. Know how that goes.
Took what it took,
Yeah, but I think that does. I don't want to say accelerate the process, but you're very bluesy, right? A lot of your music is blues based, if not direct blues, right? So I think to actually feel that kind of pain, to actually go through pain, but even like despair, real despair, you hear it again, and that's where the honesty comes out. When you hear Greg Allman sing, I mean, there's no, Janis, when Janis sang, I mean, I felt the pain.
It is.
The truth.
You do.
It's brutal.
It's brutal, and it's sad that, it on some level, to make that kind of music, most often you've lived that kind of despair. Yeah. I fortunately, was able to overcome a lot of it with a lot of support and help. That's why I think, people often say, wow, you've lost so much of your family and you're still going. And it's like, well, that's part of life. But that self-inflicted despair is a whole other demon that just, can just eat you alive, and you do have to really have an emotional bottom there. I couldn't write any of those songs while I was in that place because I was not functional. Right. But it was afterwards, the reflection, that then the music comes out of it, for me.
Are you comfortable talking about that dark side?
Sure.
So how dark did it get? Like, what would you say, where did it take you?
It took me pretty low. I mean, I was, I met my guitarist, Jon Diamond, before it really hit the fan. And I remember he was relieved when he found out it was drugs because he thought I was just losing my mind. And, you know, it was days and days of like staying up. I, you know, almost died. I went through a rape. Yeah, it was all New York, my early years. I would go just randomly with whoever had the drugs, and one night it got me into some trouble. I was raped and crawled out a bathroom window, you know. Raped in a sense that, in retrospect, it really pissed me off for a long time. It took a while to get over because I was twice the guy's size. But, you know, you don't think that at the time when you're just so scared, 19. No, it was very dark. I started working in strip joints, and, you know, basically it was up to $1,000 a night, and it was all going up my nose. So it was really quite dark. And, you know, I was really lucky to have found Jon and his amazing family, found, you know, help for me. Yeah. My family didn't know much. I wasn't telling them much, and they weren't going to be of much support. You know, my sister's suicide was the real wake-up call. That's when I was like, okay, I gotta clean up. I just imagine doing drugs and seeing her in that coffin, because I don't know if you've ever been up on cocaine for 3 days, but that come down is pretty rough.
If I was only up on cocaine for 3 days, yeah, my life would be so much better.
So you've been there.
Yeah.
So you know, I mean, there is nothing worse than that feeling of just, you're out of drugs, you're out of friends, you're out of money, you're out of an apartment, you know.
Yeah. 13 rehabs.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But so out of that darkness, you're able to, you know, and that's your own personal, you know, stuff that you were going through. On top of that, the loss to your close family members, and you were getting high during some of that?
No, thank God. When my sister took her life, I was just getting clean.
Oh, okay.
And I got the call, and I remembered I had gone to these Cocaine Anonymous meetings, and I had come back from this convention for the weekend because I couldn't stay clean. I'd put a few days together, and then that urge would just hit like a Mack truck. And before you knew it, it's 3 days later, and you've spent all your money, and you're hanging out with crazy people. I remember being in a room with this Japanese man. I think we probably just stayed up for 24 hours. He spoke no English, I spoke no Japanese, and we were just yapping to each other for 24 hours doing cocaine. But I had just finally committed to really trying to get sober, and started to really take the help. And I got a call at the temp job I was at from my sister's then boyfriend. He just kept screaming in the phone, she's blue, I don't know what to do. And I just remember thinking, what is she pulled now? Because my sister was a bit of a drama queen all growing up. And the next thing I knew, I was waking up in my boss's office, and I guess I had just kind of passed out from the shock. And after that, I never touched cocaine again. So
good for you.
With all of my family loss, I've been so blessed to be able to be with them and present in their lives. And, you know, I was with my dad up until 2 days before he went. I was with my mom and my oldest brother, Don, while they went. My brother, Dan, who was 2 years ago, we were on the phone the night before. He was going to take my mom shopping the next morning. After my dad had passed 6 months to the day, he was there to take care of my mom, and she went to wake him up for shopping. He was gone. So I flew right down. I was really, I mean, I can't even imagine being able to handle the loss if I was still that spiral.
Sure. Listen, you know, I think that prisons are full of people, and psych wards, and just maybe not even you have to wind up there, but when the dial is just tweaked 1 degree in another direction, you know, things can be a whole lot different. And sometimes I think the grace comes from being able to experience that insanity and that pain, that you can have compassion for the next person, that somebody that hasn't actually been through it just can't really understand.
I think you're right. There's an empathy there that I think it takes a little, because, you know I've had some trouble with some other family members, and then other family members have said, you know, oh, they're just choosing, and on one level, yeah, there's some truth to that. When you're an adult, you have to really decide if you want to get help and get better. but the judgment that goes with it, it's essentially a mental illness.
Yeah, it is.
And it shouldn't be treated like a crime. It should be supported. I mean, that's one reason I've been involved with this JED Foundation.
Yeah.
That's their motto. Like, you know, don't call the cops, call 911. Call an ambulance, call help. You know, it's not a crime, it's a health issue.
That's where the angel part I came up with last night was, because at the show you did at the Rubin recently, and when you said, you know, it was like kind of a plea to people, there's help out there. It's out there, you know, and a lot of people, you know, when you're in that mode, you don't even really want the help. You're just so down.
Yes.
It's really hard to penetrate and get through to somebody like that, you know, just a tough spot to be in.
It's a tough spot because you're either high and you have no troubles, no worries, and then you're coming down and you just feel like it's impossible.
Nothing but worries.
Exactly.
And and I'm no good and all that other stuff that comes with that, yeah. But you also, the last time we spoke, said something about your megaphone, like where your career is at now, your megaphone being louder as your career grows. And so the opportunity that you took the other night, you reach more people with this message now than, you know.
That's the goal.
Not too long ago. I mean, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
That's the reason I want it to grow, you know? I mean, that's been my whole change of heart over the last few years. Like I said, you know, I learned, I learned a little while back that this is not going to make me rich and famous. I'm not going to be a pop star, you know? And it wasn't something I ever really pursued. But now it's like, all right, so what am I doing? What is the point? And it is to really just connect with people more, help people connect. I mean, there's nothing I love more than being at a show and like this friend from, you know, California met up with this friend from Arizona, and then they came to New York and bought tickets and hooked up with a friend from Germany who came in. You know, it's amazing.
You're like your own Grateful Dead.
I love it. Now that kind of crowd, come on, more and more.
But the music industry, like you just said, it's changing so dramatically that how does an artist like yourself really get out there and be able to spread your wings all over the world, because you have very big followings everywhere you go? I mean, the only people that aren't fans of yours just haven't heard you or seen you. I mean, obviously. I
love that. That's good.
You know, it's the truth.
I think, you know, to do it this way, you know, there's two things to know about it. One, it's harder if you don't have a label pumping all of this money and support into you. But it's also if you have the discipline, the desire, the passion, and of course, hopefully some talent, and something to say. I remember Bob Dylan saying that in that documentary, No Direction Home. He was like, you have to have something to say. So I think if you have all of those things, and you know, then you have the will to do it, it's a beautiful time for artists, because you don't need to rely on getting radio play or having the big label support you. In fact, I just left a small label because I realized, you know, and it was a fine departure. I did a few albums with them, and then I thought, you know what? I want even just a little more control. He was great as far as like not caring, but he didn't try to control the music aspect. Right. But it was a very limited kind of formula that they could plug you into because their finances are limited.
So you kind of outgrew them.
You do, you know, and no big major label is going to come put millions of dollars anymore behind an artist like me, you know. So it's like, well, I'll raise the money on my own. I've been putting my own money into it anyway. So why not own all my material, A, and B, know the publicist I'm hiring in each country. Hire a publicist in each country. Get the word out, knowing what it takes now.
Right.
Takes a lot of work. It's a hell of a workload. A lot of discipline and thought and a good supporting team around you, but it can be done. And any artist that, you know, has had success doing it knows this. And anybody who wants real success and freedom can do it.
Great segue, because you're actually crowdfunding this upcoming album you're doing, right?
Yes, that's scary.
Talk about that. I mean, that is a big risk and jump, right?
It is a risky jump, and it was something I thought, when I saw other artists that I really look up to doing it, I was like, whoa, that's bold. Ooh, yeah. And
yeah.
But then you realize, like, you can make it something really cool. You're not asking people to just give you money.
Right.
You're saying, hey, if you're already a fan, I say friend, and you want to support it, then, you know, help me on the journey so I can come to your city, state, because a lot of people are fans that have never even gotten to see us live. Help us make the next record. And then in exchange, you know, just pre-order the CD is one simple thing, but then you get fun with the bigger ticket items with some of your friends have even more money and they really want to help.
Right.
And they're like, how can I help? How can I help? Well, buy a house concert, you know?
Yeah.
One fan wrote me and said, well, the dinner thing sounds really fun, but then I just feel like I'm paying to hang out with you. It makes me feel like a loser. I'm like, no, that's not what it's about. I would never charge people to have dinner at my apartment. You know, it's more just like you're supporting the cause, and in exchange, I'm going to give you this gift.
So everybody's honest in your life.
Yes, exactly. Hey, you know, I do welcome it. I can't have it one-sided, right?
It's a hell of a place to go, though. Right?
I get some interesting mails from people, and I'm like, take what you need and leave the rest. But that's, you know, it can't be one-sided. If I'm going to give them the truth, they got to give it back. So
is it working? I mean,
it's working. I mean, we set a pretty high goal, and to be at 18% is really good in just a matter of, you know, days.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it pans out. Ideally, my plan was to make enough money to make a really good CD, you know, great recording, and then have enough to put a publicist in the countries that you really need the press behind you. And that's where a lot promotion and publicity is really where the money has to be spent for something like this, to get, like you said, more people who aren't aware of us, me.
Right.
You know, let them check it out now.
Is the gig like record sales anymore? I mean, or is it hits? I mean, it's changed so much, right? So what is the goal?
I mean, you know, for an artist like me and where I'm at, the goal is, you know, the live exposure. Yeah, of course, you sell your CD really digitally.
Right.
Or people want a keepsake from the show, so you sign them.
How do you even keep control of that, though? If you once you put it out there digitally, you know, it's Pirate City, right?
You just
really
hope
don't.
that the real fans will support.
Yeah.
So it's either, okay, if you're going to steal my music, cool, just spread the word and buy tickets to the show.
A shirt and whatever else you can do.
A t-shirt, yeah, t-shirts help.
Yeah.
You know, so it is really concert sales. And, you know, for big acts, it's, you know, they're doing film stuff, TV, you know, it's
Right.
crossing over into all of these avenues just to get people to hear you.
Right. What is it that attracted you to blues?
You know, funny enough, when I came to New York, Billie Holiday was my first thing of blues that was more jazzy, and then I sort of forgot about it because I was so young, and I got into the classic rock, and I was in a very, you know, soul phase, classic rock, and then I came to New York, and literally within a week of being here, I was walking through the East Village, and I heard this guitar solo, and it was Jon Diamond playing I'd Rather Go Blind. I'd never heard the song before. 6'4", mix of Cherokee Indian black man called Moose, singing with a voice that, like, I had never heard live before. It was unbelievable. And my jaw just dropped. And so they, you know, I met them on the break and said I wanted to be a singer, and they said, well, come up and sing a song. They asked me to do
So
Stormy
up to
Monday.
this point, you have not sang anywhere.
Nope. Only in Wildwood, Florida, or Leesburg, Florida, the Hollywood.
But you had a burning dream still.
Yes. I came to do this. I came, I was like, I've got to get out of Florida. I did owe some drug dealers money. I had given all their drugs away. I didn't have the heart to sell, and I just gave it away, and it was terrible, but it's another story. So a friend...
About 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yeah, right. A girl I knew at a pizza place I just started working was driving up to New Jersey with her mom, and I was like, that's close enough. Can I take a ride with you guys? And so I rode up with them, and took a little while to get to New York. It was about 9 months later, working at this little blimpie shop in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And then I went to New York. I did start working in those strip clubs to afford living there. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to pursue the music. I have to do this. And so I heard Jon. I introduced myself. They invited me to sing Stormy Monday. I didn't know one thing about blues, phrasing it. You know, people think it's such a simple music. Drummers that have never played blues make that mistake. Oh, that's just easy. And it's not. It's such phrasing. And I still don't think I have it down. I really don't. I'm just like, wow, I hear a real deal blues artist. I'm like, oh, that is like the time is just so. And anyway, I butchered Stormy Monday. And Jon Diamond said to me, well, you have a great instrument. Your voice is a great instrument. You don't know how to sing blues. And I have an extensive collection at home. And so I called him probably a couple months later. I was just getting into the throes of the dark path again. And by the time I called him, you know, he still remembered me, but we got together and decided we would start to do music, put a band together. We started just emulating some of these cover songs. He was like feeding me this great material, Otis, Etta, Coco Taylor.
Stuff you had not been previously exposed to.
No, nothing. He's like, who are you listening to? I'm like, Zeppelin, Stones. And he's like, now go listen to who they listen to.
Yeah, right.
So he gave me all these records and CDs to take and study. And I did. I just immersed myself. You know, I had to go through a pretty dark period before I actually pulled it together, and it was really around the death of my sister that I was like, okay, I gotta do this, and I also need to write my own songs. So it was like the late 90s, I started getting my first gigs in New York, pretty much just blues covers, throwing in an original here and there. But it was these voices. It was listening to Mavis Staples, Coco Taylor. I was just like, Otis Redding. I'm like, there is something, they're pulling from a depth that is otherworldly to get that kind of voice across, that kind of mourn. Even Hank Sr. was another, I consider him a blues, country blues.
Yeah.
Just that guttural, it's so, so desperate, the despair.
It transcends everything.
It does.
Everything.
Because you connect to that despair, but it's so interesting that it brings you joy with all that darkness.
Doesn't blues do that?
It really does.
It's like the whole world has just shit on me.
Exactly.
But I ain't done.
Exactly.
Yeah, somehow there's something empowering in it as well.
I think it's a validation, you know? You feel validated when you hear stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. But now, at this point, you're researching.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're starting to work with Jon and develop for the first time. Would you call it like training?
Absolutely. That's exactly great what I would call it. I used to joke and say, I'm taking voice lessons from Mavis Staples, Coco Taylor, Etta James, Otis Redding. People are like, what? You know? So
he was kind of like placed right in your life.
It's
Jon.
amazing. You know, I remember looking it up, and his Jonathan, I think, the biblical term, he's Jewish and atheist, but the term is something like a saint to guide or something like that. Yeah. It's really funny. I do believe in those little signs and connections.
Absolutely.
So I would say he probably saved my life. Music saved my life. Him and his family saved my life.
Right. And then you guys dated for
a
while, right?
That was a disaster. That almost ended my life. Actually, that almost ended his life. Hence the song Misery. Yeah. No, we like music, I always joke, we were like a couple that had a child together called Music, and then we immediately got divorced, but we had to be friendly and keep, take care of this child together.
Yeah.
And then our bond got much stronger as friends.
You guys have a tremendous camaraderie together. I mean, it's really cool.
It's like, it's thicker than blood at this point. He's like a brother.
That's great. I mean, that's phenomenal. And that's very rare. That's right?
That is rare.
I think we can all admit that is fucking rare.
His mom and I are really close. So we just had lunch recently, and she said, people just ask me all the time, like, isn't that an odd situation how it turned out? Because the love of my life and Jon are friends,
Right. Well, do you think there's just like that kindred spirit connection there where you guys were like, there's a bigger purpose that you both were able to see?
Absolutely. And I think we thought, because we had the other stuff in common, that we should be a couple. But we should have never been a couple. Right.
But still, for both of you guys to be able to realize that and be mature about moving on, to be able to grasp the fact that what you guys have is so much bigger than an ego or, whatever the feeling is that you're going through at the time.
It's true. It's true. I remember, we broke up shortly after moving in together, because that's when the real test happens, right? And I just remember being very sad but sweet. Like, we just knew, okay, we're going to keep the music going, and we're going to figure out how, and this is going to be sad. Like, his family was my family, so it was like that's what Misery's about. I was braving this whole new world alone. All of his friends, Jon was a bit older, so all of his friends and family became my only support. So now here I am I'm going it alone. Because, people were hurt. They were sad. Yeah. It's sad when, you're in this relationship and people break up. The families are affected too.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you too now, because now you're clearing up, kind of, with the drugs, whatever. You're starting to come to terms with that and get better, and the situations in your family start, the losses, and now you're not anesthetizing over it. So, I mean, I know, and you joke about it often about this. You write about it, and what am I going to write about if people stop dying? But at the same time, like it's really hard. People don't usually make it through stuff like that, especially when you're early, in your journey. But how was that for you?
It's such a great question. Each loss I've asked myself, especially after my mom, I literally said to Jon, I don't think I can get on stage for 5 years, if even. Like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do anything. Like, I couldn't fathom getting on stage. When my sister died, that was the first loss, and it got me clean. She was sort of the one, she would sing me to sleep at night. Songbird, one of the first songs I wrote, that's for her. So that was like, I have to do this now. And then years later, when my brother Don died, he was the one in the band with my sister. He was the other musician that went to really make it, a career out of it. So again, when he passed, I was like, okay, I'm keeping the torch alive for these two. That was the first time I got on stage, was with their band. Then with my dad and then my brother and my mom all really back to back, there was a time when I thought, I can't do this anymore. I am done. I just felt so drained. And with my mom, it was just such a shocker because she had a cold, We didn't see that coming at all. And that was the one I thought, no, I'm not gonna be able to do this. But then you're sitting home, what are you gonna do? Lay in bed all day and cry? And so, fortunately I have a bit of a meditation practice now. I've been, a student of Buddhism for a while, and you really understand, okay, this is life, and this is a big part of life. It's the cycle of life. We have to move on. To wallow in, to reject what is so painful. It's when we accept, this is what happened. I can't change it. I can only change how I respond to it. Right. So that's been the saving grace. And then by virtue of that, you get into a healthier place. And then when I'm in a healthy place, I realize music is such a big part of my life. I can't just give it up.
So as tough as it was to lose your mom, you had the strength. It was there.
I did, and I had the strength because of the audience. I mean, I just remember, like, every time I've all these cancellations, and it was like, God, I can't believe I'm gonna write another blog about canceling another tour because I've lost another family member. And honestly, the only people that got bitchy about it were some agents and a label. But the audience, the support was overwhelming. And I was just like, these people are in this with me. I'm not giving that up. That's just an extended family of support I feel so blessed to have.
You really do have a loyal following.
It's incredible.
Yeah. You did a couple of songs the other night. The one was about all your family members calling angels, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
How was that to write?
It's interesting. It's those songs that, like, the words just flow out. I remember I was at Jon's studio. It was just a few weeks ago. We were writing in Harlem. It was our first or second write. Actually, that was the first writing session for the new CD since I've had the baby. And I decided, all right, I'm gonna leave the baby with someone. I'm gonna go focus on writing. I had no idea what we were gonna do. I just thought I would sit there at a blank screen all day. And Jon had this idea. He was mumbling, "Oh, no, no, angel," and I was like, hold it right there. I didn't realize it was going to be my whole family, but I finished the chorus first, and then I was like, this is my family, calling angels, because so many people wrote me after each loss, wow, you have all these angels looking over you now. Funny enough, Jon using the word angel before it occurred to me to, being the atheist that he is, I found it kind of funny. I was like, you're saying angels in a song? He's like, I don't know, I just thought it sounded cool. So we finished the chorus, I was like, this is my family. And then unwittingly, I did the first verse, my sister. Second verse, my oldest brother. Third verse, my dad. Fourth verse, my brother that died right before my mom, and then my mom. And I was like, this. By the time I did the second brother, I was like, they're all in order here. This is wild. So my mom has to be, the verse. And we kept trying to record it, to demo it up, and I couldn't do it. I could not. I was like, I'm not going to be able to perform this at the Rubin. I could not stop crying singing it. So it was really cool to be able to sing it that night. I kept choking up, but I knew I was very safe there to do that with all you guys,
And what about that other song about Aleppo, Orphan?
Orphan, that was another thing. Like, it was shortly after Aiden was born, and I had 60 Minutes on, and they were showing the little boy that was dug from the rubble.
Right.
And then, you keep seeing this footage, largely in Aleppo, of these people just being bombed out of their homes, mostly women and children. And having now my own baby, it's something devastating and sad that would have ripped my heart out anyway. Then when you look at your own baby and you realize, oh my God, you just want to protect them from every little thing, even like, a bee sting. Yeah. To imagine a baby going through that, it was haunting me. I couldn't sleep. And so, again, at Jon's studio, and he's like, I have this really poppy idea. He didn't have any, mumbling. He just had the guitar riff. And I was like, that's really beautiful. Like, there's nothing wrong with a little poppy sound. And so he just started doing it. I said, keep playing that over and over again. And for some reason, I just keep seeing my son, and I kept seeing that little baby covered in all the dust. And I was like, okay, that's what this is about. And again, that one just flowed out. That's what happens when you're really in it in that moment. The lyrics are just whoosh.
Like, how often has that happened to you where you had that moment where it just rolls out?
Not often. Sometimes, I remember being very relieved. I think it was Leonard Cohen. I read this quote. He was like, a good song isn't written, it's rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. Yeah. Actually, maybe Steven Tyler said that, and Leonard Cohen said, inspirations for amateurs just show up and stare at a blank page all day. That's your job. So, and I've done that. Jon and I have been like, want to go have lunch? Dinner? Wine? And then nothing.
Yeah. So what is your process? Do you have a set, like a routine? Like, you're going to sit down and you're putting an album together now?
Yes.
Do you you and Jon just get together and
Yep.
see what comes?
Sometimes I'll have an idea on my own that I'll have to write up. And I'll think, oh, I got to remember this to bring it to the next session. But the important thing we've learned over the years is you have to book the session. You can't wait for the inspiration. I mean, reading that years ago from Leonard Cohen was such a helpful tip. No, you got to show up for work. So I'll be there at 1. We're going to see what happens.
Right.
Coffee, lunch, and we're going to sit there. And Jon oftentimes has like a gazillion of these little snippets, like these melodic ideas he's had with a guitar riff. Yeah. And we'll sit and we'll go through those. And I'll say, oh, that one's grabbing me. Let's start. And we'll start and it'll either work or we'll say, I'm not feeling it anymore. Boom, we'll move to the next, which is what happened with Orphan. He was like, well, because I wasn't grabbing onto anything he was playing me. He's like, let me play you this weird poppy idea. I was like, that's it.
Yeah. So it's not a matter of I got to get the lyrics first and we're going to put music to it, or I got this melody, what can you write for it?
It can come any which way, but it'll only come when you put the focus. Back to our little theme of the day, that focus creates spontaneity. See, you really created it.
I wasn't focused on our theme.
I wasn't either, but it keeps coming out because it was such a great realization you gave us today.
I think that your one song, and I think this was the first song you ever wrote, was Back to the Avenue to Do It Again.
There we go. I'm going to give it to you. Strung out.
When you said that, I'm going back to the avenue to do it again and again. I just was reminded of there was just so much shit. Yeah, I really want to do good, but I'm going, I'm not ready. I'm just, and on so many levels. I mean, I don't know if that was about a relationship or was that about addiction, was both, all of it. Yeah.
But, certainly that was that first song was about the throes of that addiction and living in Alphabet City, and I remember there was a guy, he called himself Thunderbird. He would stand out on the corner just screaming and ranting all night. I think he was probably a brilliant guy. Like, the stuff he was saying was all about politics, I don't know. And then he would just start smashing bottles. So that's waking up to the sound of breaking glass, but then it's also the pipe breaking in the crack pipe, you know? So it's all of that imagery.
Very disappointing moment right there. Damn.
Shit.
You know what kind of loser I was like that? I used to break my pipe every night because I'm done and I have to buy a new one every day.
Right. How many times did you flush stuff?
Oh, the guilt.
And then you're just like,
You know, and that's why I think this is a topic that just needs a little time, because whether you're doing drugs or not, or drinking or not, or you know, self-destructing on whatever level, it's really like you're a contradiction. Like you really do want, you know, there's somebody good in there that wants to do the right thing. And,
Absolutely.
you know, but you know, the beast is winning. And we know that. I knew it, you know, I just like, you know, I really wanted to do better. That's why it took me so many times, because when push came to shove, I might have thought I was ready, but I wasn't.
no.
You know, and then
It's a
back to
big
the avenue
beast.
to do it again.
Exactly.
And again.
and again and
Yeah.
again. It is. It's a big beast, and it's a vapid, huge hole that, you know, is not going to be solved by jail time for petty crime. You know, I have a nephew who's been going through this. It's the son of the brother that I lost most recently, and his kids have been really struggling with this. And you know, they keep doing jail time, and it's like, you know, we pleaded with one judge. He's 19 years old. How about rehab? You know, there's no system in place for young people, or any age of drug addiction. There's just nothing in place. It's such, you know, you're so shunned, and it's really support and help you need.
Yeah, it's a tough existence, really brutal. And how some people don't make it out, you know, is so tragic. When because I really think it's just so fleeting. It has nothing to do with anybody being better than somebody else, or luckier or more fortunate. I don't know what the big grand scheme of things is, you know, but I just know that I'm alive. Somewhere along the line, I got to man up and be responsible.
Exactly.
I never was. You get over, you know, manipulate love.
Oh God, it's the life of a con artist, isn't it?
And there's so much more to do. There's just something so what you're doing now is not just, see, you're a great performer, a great songwriter, you know, your honesty, you have so many different things that you excel at. And the fact that your message is one of great hope for anybody that's struggling with that, because of your truth, because what you're doing, not what you're writing about what you're doing is what I guess I'm trying to say. And that, I don't know if there's a greater message, you know?
I would hope so, but thank you. I mean, you know, as you say that, I'm like, all right, good. It does matter. You know, because you write it for your own catharsis. And again, that's when that shift for me happened, where I was like, I have to be doing this not just for me. That I've got to make this more meaningful. Yeah. And you know, that I don't mean that to sound grandiose, like I can save the world by any means, but it just makes it much more motivating to leave your home, travel, and get on stage night after night, no matter how sick you are, if you are doing it for others.
Yeah.
Because once you're just doing it for yourself, I think that's what leads to a lot of self-destruction too, especially in this business. When you feel like it's just all about you, you go so inside. And I think that's when people do need to self-medicate. You know, we know drugs and alcohol abuse are rampant in this industry. And it is, I think, because you take so much pressure on that you have to be this great thing for people. No, just give your shit to them, and they'll give their shit to you.
That's easy to say, but look what you had to go through to get to that point, to get to that realization, right? So the fact that you can give that away, it is ultimately about the service.
It's about service.
It is. No matter how you try to splice it, that's what it comes down to.
Which is what I love about the Buddhist approach to things.
Right.
It's like, you know, there's one quote by a monk from like 1,000 years ago called Shantideva, and I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially says, look at all those that are spending all of their time just trying to fulfill their own needs, and look at those who spend all of their time serving others. Who's happier? Yeah. And it's such a beautiful paragraph. I butchered it a little there, but you get the point. Yeah. And it's true. Yeah, we know.
It's almost like, you know, going through the tough times enlightens you. You know, I think it does give that, it helped me see a level of compassion for somebody else who I could very easily judge.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
And definitely often have. Just to be able to identify, that's a great gift. But okay, so now you we mentioned Billie Holiday was one of your, is there any other particular blues, female, male, whatever, singers that you just said like, wow, that you really wanted to kind of
I still have to say Otis Redding.
Yeah.
I remember just starting to immerse myself, and John had his VHS player and a tape of Live at Monterey, and he's like, check this out, and it was Otis doing I've Been Loving You Too Long. I was just like, okay, I was done.
And you cover that as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
It took a long time to brave covering it.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it at the time at gigs, but I didn't have it. I didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the confidence. I could not do that song. It took years. 2010 was when I first.
Of just doing it?
Yep. I wouldn't perform it because I couldn't do it. We'd try to practice it, try to record it, and I couldn't pull it off. It was partially just, not having enough experience vocally and musically, I think, but also not having the confidence because Otis, to me.
Comes from that place.
Oh.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
So it was finally 2010 when I first was able to sing that song on stage and put it on a recording.
Wow.
But that was the song that really said, I have to do this.
So you did Nobody's Fault But Mine the other night, right?
Yes, that's going on the next CD.
Is that like your way of honoring Otis and
Yes.
his influence?
I kind of feel like I should do an Otis cover on every album for the rest of my life. Because he really, when it all boils down to it, that scene at Monterey, where he's just like bringing this audience together too. He's like, wait, aren't you the Love crowd or something like that? I love that. And he's, nobody knows who the hell he is. And then he does a song like that with such ripping honesty, talk about honesty, that I knew I have to perform like, and I have to perform like that. It has to be like that, or I don't want to do it at all, was the feeling I got seeing that. And it's been the driving force behind me since, so yeah.
What about Janice? I mean, because what kind of a part did she play in your development as you sit here today?
The Janice thing is really interesting because that was an artist that I somehow missed out on growing up. Like, she wasn't played in my house. Everybody but Janice. My dad, I think she was a little too radical for him. He didn't like women with strong personalities. He and I always butt heads growing up. So I missed out on the Janice thing, but funny enough, I learned when I played her on the off-Broadway show, Love Janice, they kept pursuing me to do that part, and I was just trying to get a label going and everything, and I thought, no, I don't want to really get involved in a Broadway musical. I want to get my own songs. I was just starting to write. But I realized I was influenced by all the same people she was influenced by. So I saw the show and I was like, oh shit, this is a great show. Okay, I'm going to do it. And then doing that show, that was around 2003, I think, was a whole other level of learning what it means to be on stage. The experience of becoming Janice every night, 5 to 6 nights a week, I was like, I have to take this kind of lack of inhibition to my show. Doing Janice and just someone giving it all, that's where I really learned, that's the final step of making this more real and more honest, is I just have to not care. If I spit, if I fall, if I look fat tonight, if my hair's a mess, I have to not give a shit what I look like on any level. And that's when I learned, you try to be cool, you don't look cool, you make an ass out of yourself. You don't care about being cool, you're cool.
That's the ultimate takeaway.
That was the and of course I learned, I got a better vocal vocabulary too by having to listen in headphones to all of her songs and just really, study those notes she would hit, because she was a rock and roll singer who, did blues, or a blues singer who did rock. And that's where I was going musically. So I was like, holy cow, how did this chick do this? So then of course I became a huge fan. But what I got from her the most was, good thing I'm not on drugs anymore. I want to live.
Very dark.
Very dark, and you can't have inhibitions on a stage. You just can't. If you have them, you use them. Andy Warhol said, show everybody your warts before they see them. And I love that.
So, because she was really so unique. I don't know, up until she came into the picture, was there anybody close to what she put out there?
She was a big groundbreaker.
Yeah.
I love
she could jam with the boys.
Yes.
She was getting out there. It was, yeah. Okay. How important is vulnerability? And we kind of went over it, but just your personal vulnerability in your writing.
It's really essential. I mean, it's not something I try to have, but if I tried not to have it, it would be a problem. You know, I remember learning early on, you know, I can't write about what I don't know or feel connected to. Yeah. So, of course, with that comes an amount of vulnerability. You know, I don't go into a session saying, okay, I have to be vulnerable to write, you know, and write something vulnerable. But it's just second nature. Yeah, so but it would be forced to say, try to write something clever without being vulnerable. That would be rough.
Right. So how do you know, when you're that open, like an open wound when you lose your mom. I mean, I dread the thought of that. You know, so I would feel for any, you know.
I dreaded it for years, and I'll tell you, when it happens, the
You're
dread.
never prepared.
No.
There's no way, right?
No way.
Yeah.
Christmas was so rough. Again, it was like such a mixed. I was so, like, it really hit hard on Christmas because that was the plan. She knew I was pregnant. Yeah. She even named him. And the plan was like, we're coming down Christmas Day, you'll get to meet him because he'll be ready to travel. And so it was really hard. I had a quiet day at home. Really missing her terribly.
In Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel for you, you know, so I'm sorry for that. And how do you know, when it's something that intimate to you, do you have to question, you know, the depth of, like, you know, like, to bring the correct magnitude, you know, when you're expressing your feelings, that you're not like, I don't know if there's anything, you know, deeper than that, right?
I don't think there is.
That bond, right? Right. So that you know you're doing it justice when you're saying something, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just, this is how I feel in the moment.
No, you're right.
There's a lot more significance to it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, such a great point, and exactly why when she passed, I really did not even see myself. I was like, I can't get on stage. I don't know if I can ever get on stage again, but certainly it's going to be years before I can. I really felt that at the time. I couldn't fathom it. You know, and then as the time goes, and then you realize, okay, this is part of the catharsis still. I need to get out there because that's part of the healing and the support from others. You know, I read, I forget how many thousands of comments I got with that post about losing my mom.
I remember it.
And the comfort of just being up at night reading people's posts to me was so, you know, you feel like the world has your back in that moment. But it's something that is so hard to write about and talk about without it being trite, seeming to be trite, because it's the deepest loss I've ever had. Yeah.
I had, when my father passed away, I had a tumultuous, at times, relationship with my dad. We just, you know, but at the end we were good.
Same here, me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, but when I walked into the hospital and he was dead, I can't even express, I don't know, that's why I'm like flabbergasted on the eloquence that you can express yourself through that. Because I was just like, everything just dropped. I just was like, I didn't even know how to, you know, I wouldn't know how to put something like that into the appropriate words. That's why I asked that question. It was so devastating.
It puts things into perspective. Yeah. I mean, you know, with each loss, I can say over the last like 5 years especially, you know, it's sort of a chicken egg situation, which came first, you know, all the loss and then having this meditation practice, and you just start to realize, like, you know, the things that used to get you worried or anxious or annoyed, like, you know, the cat puking 20 times when you're trying to leave the house, you got to keep scooping up cat litter or something. Those little frustrations, just the subway, you know, missing the train or feeling like the conductor purposely closed the doors on you when you're running late. All those things. So I don't know if it's just a combination of all the family loss, the practice helping you deal with all the family loss making you delve deeper into this kind of practice of mindfulness and appreciation, but it's all such a perspective changer. So everything seems so insignificant.
Yeah, it's good perspective. But you even joke about how dark some of your music. Am I gonna write was it a love song or a children's song? You were saying?
Yes.
Am I gonna write
Happy baby song, only dark baby songs.
Happy baby, yeah. But you also have that little sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek, funny side. I'm thinking of you.
I got nothing on my mind.
I got nothing on my mind. That's a great, How does a song like that come about? Like, what do you?
That was really after a great Buddhist teaching. This amazing teacher was talking about like what they call in Buddhism emptiness, and that it's like nothing exists because outside of our mind. So a Buddhist will just say, doesn't exist. But the real explanation of that is it doesn't exist outside of our mind, so our mind creates our world. So I was thinking that, and I had been talking to this girl who was just devastated that this guy that was like just wanting the booty call, she thought she was going to be able to flip him into this relationship, and it wasn't happening, so, and she was just like so obsessed with this guy, but then it was on to the next guy and the next guy. So I just thought, well, that's kind of funny, I'm thinking about you, I got nothing on my mind. It has a lot of different meanings, but yes, sarcastically.
Yeah, as from the writing perspective and the lyrics perspective, but then like musically, that it's kind of country-ish.
Well, yeah, a title like I'm thinking about you, got nothing on my mind. John and I remember we were talking about it. We're like, that's got to be a country song with a title like that.
Yeah, it's ideal.
And I'm really influenced by country. My dad was a big Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, Patsy Cline, fan. And I remember John going through a phase of Dwight Yoakam, Buck Owens. So we both have a lot of country in us, the old school bluesy country. Yeah. So we just started goofing around, and I was singing it real twangy for fun. And they were like, let's keep it country. But Rolling Stones kind of country when they did like Dead Flowers,
Right. But now a Songbird, kind of jazzy.
Yes.
Right? So there's a lot of different influences musically. Yes. And that's what you and John do deliberately, or you just find the groove that works for the moment?
It's just for the moment. It's not a deliberate thing. In fact, the first few times with our first record, which had Songbird, Strung Out, Hiding From Your Love, so you got rock. It had Tell Me I'm Not Drinking, that was country. Songbird was sort of R&B, jazzy. And I remember, showcasing for labels at the Mercury Lounge. The shows were sold out. People were singing the songs. They were like, yeah, it's all great, but what are you? Are you country? Are you blues? Are you rock? And I remember being so frustrated by that. I thought, well, isn't it a good thing to use all your influences? And, we were told, no, you just got to, pick a genre, stick with it. And I wasn't capable of it.
Good for you.
I just couldn't do it. So that's when I was like, all right, the pop world is not for me.
That was the drawback of the industry in those days too, was you could very easily get pigeonholed into, some kind of persona that maybe you weren't.
One label was like, she needs to be more like Sheryl Crow. The other one was like, tell her to go the Pink route. And it was just, I was like, why can't I just be me? Why can't I have all these influences?
I remember seeing Lyle Lovett once, and at the Wiltern.
Right.
And I was just blown away by this guy. I was like trying to explain to him, I don't know what he is, man. I don't know. He's blues. Yeah, he's country.
Jazz,
he's
folk.
Jazz. So, that was what was impressive about him. Yeah, I love it. That's what he is.
Exactly.
But how many artists get to do that? You're getting to do that, and that's really cool.
It's a harder road, but it's a harder road logistically. I think if I had just sold out and sung the song that someone once presented, Baby, I Like Your Dimensions was the hook. If I had sold out, I think that would have been a much harder road emotionally. I think I would have gone back to the cocaine.
Yeah, back to the contradiction again.
Yes.
Yeah. But, it's harder to market you maybe that way, right?
Yes, and that was the point. And which is now why in this day and age, it's freeing because we can market ourselves. Just like, here's YouTube. If you like it, here's this song, Now
you make that sound so easy. I'm going to market myself. Everybody knows that is maybe the hardest task you're looking at moving forward, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's exactly why we're doing the Pledge campaign too, because to take matters in your own hands, you have to really know, you have to run a business. It's like running a business. Okay, what do I need to make the record? What do I need to hire the publicist? Which countries do I need the publicist the most? you know, it's like accounting, budgeting while creating the music, but it's running a business. So yeah.
And how are you objective in that scenario? Like, how can you be objective with your own career?
That's a really good question. I think
Two good questions.
Yeah, you really you got a lot more than two. I think you have to gauge, you know, back to like what you keep saying. You
Focus.
honesty and focus are our themes today. Focus and honesty. So yeah, but being honest, like you know that gauge if it feels right or if it doesn't. So you know, I can hear a song back that we've written and I'm like, no, it's missing something. The tempo's off. Or I can look at a picture of myself and go, oh no, that's a bad angle. You know, you have to become like sort of thick-skinned too.
Yeah, okay. Again, theoretically, that's great. But now, when you're faced with, okay, you want to keep your musical integrity intact, right? But here comes an opportunity, and it's money, and it may go against that. Then it becomes tough, no?
Well, I really haven't had the carrot dangled from me yet. It's the money. We'll see if I sell out.
But I mean, I mean, listen. I grew up, and all of these artists that would never ever put their music to commercial. They're all doing it now. It's like the thing.
Of course.
The whole.
Remember when actors would never do
TV.
film actors would never do TV?
Yeah, sure.
And they would certainly never do commercials.
Right.
And now they're all doing it.
Of course. Yeah.
Money.
Voiceovers, anything.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, my point is like, as you're moving forward, to guide your own destiny, right? That's a loaded thing to do. That's really, or is it? You know, that's just my perception? Or do you just roll with it and
I think you roll
cross
with
that
it.
bridge when you get there?
Yeah, I think you're saying, okay, this is what I do, so I'm starting my own business, just like a chef. You know, he's going to sort of say, I like to pull from this cuisine and that cuisine.
Right.
I'm not just going to serve, you know, curly fries and whatever, you know, whatever the stable fast food chain or chain food. You know, there's a difference of a chef starting a restaurant and saying, no, I'm not going to have a chain restaurant. I'm going to have a unique restaurant serving things that I connect with. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I just want to, you know, I was just interested on your perspective that as, you know, looking forward. Because, I mean, 2017, you got some good stuff coming up, right?
I'm hoping. Yeah, that's, you know, the Ready to Rise is sort of the theme for 2017. I just want to put death behind me, you know.
And life.
And I have life now, right, just rising up, so it's a whole new world. It's like a new chapter, it feels like, in my life.
And your career as well. I mean, your career is really at a great point. You know, are you happy with where you're at?
You know, I once read a thing that said, people who are so afraid of being in a rut are never happy where they're at, are the ones who will always succeed. So I hope that's true.
You lost me. You really... What? Say that again?
Essentially, it was saying that to be successful, you have to never be happy where you're at.
Okay.
But
okay.
That in the context of not satisfied. So I am happy.
Right.
I'm a happy person, as happy as I can be, you know. But do I want more? Yeah, do I want more exposure? Of course. Do I want more people knowing the music? Do I want bigger audiences? Yes, and I realize not for the ego, but just like we talked about, that bigger megaphone. I want to feel that what I'm doing really matters now. You know, if I'm going to drag this little baby on airplanes, planes, trains, and automobiles, I want it to be worth it, you know?
Yeah. Do you think that your perspective, like, has come from this Buddhist approach that you've adapted?
Absolutely.
How? Like, in what sense?
I think the reason the Buddhist approach spoke to me is because it was something I sort of found myself gravitating towards, where it was, there is nothing but that moment. That is the only reality. Like
the present.
The very moment we are in right this second is the only reality.
One we just missed.
Right, and that's gone, and it's gone, and it's gone. You know, which is great news. You know, because then it's the same. It's like that you know, which is one thing I always said about 12-step meetings, which I think are amazing, and it's an amazing support for people. But to say I am a diseased person, no, because that person doesn't exist from moment to moment to moment. We're always changing. The moment is always changing. So here we are in this moment. That means no time to fret about the future, no time to worry about the past or regret it. Just be here right now, right now, right now, you know. So I love that. It keeps me sane when I'm able to do it. And, you know, it's hard to not give in to anxious thoughts and worry and like what's going to happen in the future. But, you know, it's nothing we can control. And that's why I love the Buddhist technique. It's the only thing we can control is our mind, our reaction to things.
Our perception.
Our perception. Yeah. Change your mind, you change your world. Because our world, your world to you is only your perception. It's kind of heavy, right?
You know, when you get that clarity, that's profound. That doesn't just happen overnight, right? How did it happen for you?
You know, believing, going, you know, I remember the first time I went to a retreat, a Buddhist retreat. It was free, and it was 10 days of silence and just teachings. 12 hours a day meditating, got up at 4:30 in the morning, silence all day, and guided, you know, talks at night. And I just remember thinking, this is the most powerful thing, to just sit still. You know, don't just, one of the slogans was, don't just do something, sit there. Because I've always been such a reactionary, high-strung person. And to flip that around and go, I'm gonna sit with it. You know, yes, it does require patience. It requires practice like anything. You know, I'm teaching meditation classes now in this mindfulness topic, and there's always a little Buddhist nugget of wisdom thrown in with the meditation class, and it's really just, you practice at it, just like learning an instrument. You put in time every day, sit with your mind, watch it go crazy, and don't judge it. Just say, okay, my mind's going crazy, back to the breath. And when you start doing that 3 minutes a day in a formal meditation, you know, you can set a timer, I say, then you start being mindful in the rest of your day. Mm-hmm. Oh, my mind's starting to go crazy, bringing it back. It's just a thought. Thoughts, it's just thoughts. You know, in the 12 steps, they always said feelings aren't facts. Thoughts aren't reality. We make them our reality because we give in to them. So yeah, it takes time to like sort of absorb it, and then you start to see through your own experience, I'm a little calmer. I didn't just bitch that subway conductor out, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a little more compassionate. I'm a little more forgiving. I'm a little more patient. You start to...
Mm-hmm. But you had a cool way of even incorporating that into the show at the Rubin. Like, you know, the backdrops on the stage. I mean, and then you explained what each thing was. And that was, you know, it's an interesting, like, what you just said, right, in concept is, you know, to be able to sit still instead of doing something. I know how important that is, but that is beyond my grasp. I am so much better at that than I have ever been, but I am so far from anywhere good. You know what I mean? So I admire...
So am I.
but you're clearly more advanced in it, I mean, and accepting of it. And I learn constantly, at least I'm willing to learn from people that are doing that, because I know that place is more peaceful, and, you know, all that noise can simmer down at the very least, right? But yet, I can't sit there. I mean, I got a TV going, you get 6 things going at once, and that to me is quiet still. I mean, it's insane. Sitting all by yourself and just like, we had a friend of mine, Leisha, she's a yogi. She goes all over the world doing her retreats and stuff, and she posed up on that ledge.
Oh, I heard about this, yes.
And when we were talking, she's telling me about one of these things, 10 days, and it's all silence. I go, in like a prison somewhere or something, whatever it was.
Vipassana, so I'm sure she did the same one.
Yeah, and I go, you did that? She goes, 3 times. I'm like, what?
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then she said the same thing. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, like, I can't even comprehend that. So I might think I've gotten somewhere, but, you know, like, I came a long way from St. Louis, but I got a long way to go.
Well, you know, that great T-shirt I remember someone had, it's like, I may not be where I want to be, but I sure ain't where I was.
Yeah. So now, getting back to your music, which is why we're here in the first place, right? Do you have a favorite piece of work that you've done? Like, is there one that you hold, like, you know, your babies, that you hold that dear to yourself? Like,
It changes. For a while, for a long while, Almost Home was, for some reason, just my favorite song to sing at night. And it was the one that, like, you know, you get sick of singing certain songs after a while, night after night after night for years. And that one for a long time, I couldn't get sick of. Finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm not going to perform that for a little while now. But although someone asked for it at the Rubin, I wasn't planning to do it. And I did it. And I still enjoy performing it. There are some songs that I'm like, I'd be happy to never sing that again. Nothing on My Mind was another fun one, just because I really enjoy the satire of it.
Yeah.
No, I guess I don't really ever listen to myself. I don't like to listen to my old records, or I really hate watching people's cell phone videos of me. That's always really rough. Yeah, it changes. It depends on the mood I'm in. I think for a while now, my new song that is going to strike me the most on stage will be Callin' Angels, because that's really just kind of encapsulates this chapter I'm putting behind me now.
But as a musician, you can't just move on to the next thing, because when you're, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you, especially with your audience, I'm going to assume though, but they want to hear whatever they want to hear. And then you give them that opportunity to ask, what do you want to hear? So it's not like you can just put this chapter behind you and move on to the next album and the next series that you're doing, right?
Only in the aspect of writing and recording, but no, when you're doing a show, I really am a firm believer. They came out to support. What do you want tonight? And of course, I'm going to mix it with what I want too. It's got to be fair, you know. But I'm not just going to say, okay, here's the new album, not doing any of the old songs. That's not fair to an audience. And I know when I used to go to shows and the band would just do all the new stuff, I'd be like, why couldn't they just do that one old, you know? So I think it's important to keep the balance, because it might be a chapter that I've turned the page from, but it's still such a part of me, and it will always be part of my story.
Right. You know what? You're a Led Zeppelin fan, you said, right? So Robert Plant has kind of taken this road of musical integrity, where he's doing all of this bluegrass stuff, you know, and really interesting. I love the stuff.
I do too. The Alison Krauss record was amazing.
Unbelievable. That was really, really good. And the thing he just did with Patty Griffin, it's all good. I mean, it's all really good. But I went to every single show that he in his area for each one of those periods, and there were times when literally small venues with half sold out. I mean, it blew my mind. Well, this is Robert Plant. How do you not come here?
Because they want.
How was that see that?
They want that Robert Plant.
That's my point. So that's when it comes. That was kind of what I was trying to get to a little earlier about the musical integrity. Like, he's able to do that because he's Robert Plant. He doesn't. Right. That's a tough thing to do.
And you'll always have it, whatever level. You're always going to disappoint fans. I remember once backstage in Germany, we were trying out songs for Bliss Avenue, and we debuted that night live, Living on Sunday, and this German fan made his way backstage, proceeded to eat the chocolates someone had given me to tell me he didn't like the direction the new material was going.
A little too honest tonight, pal.
Exactly. I was like, okay, thank you. Would you like some champagne with that chocolate? You know, so you will always face that. But I think, again, it has to just, that's when you still have to rely on what feels good to you to motivate you to get on that stage. And, you know, I always do keep the audience in mind. I mean, I don't think I would be capable of writing a song that would just be a complete departure. You know, that would be going back to, ooh, baby, I like your dimensions. And then it's, please, I'm retiring at that point.
But also, the music is now, again, it's hard to really explain, but I was around for that disco era. And there were a lot of like...
people were hating on disco then, weren't they?
Well, and then there were some rockers who actually... The Stones did.
The Stones, Rod Stewart.
By the way.
Yes.
But again, they got away with it because they were the Rolling Stones.
And it was a cool song.
Yeah, that's true.
And
they had another version of it as well. But
yeah, that was on Tattoo You, right?
Yeah, no, Some Girls.
Some Girls, you're right.
I love Tattoo You, though. That was
Tattoo You's a great album.
That's... I wanted to ask you about lyrics, right? Are there any... I have a couple of lines in songs that just, for whatever reason, hold a place with me. It's just like, it's just a real brilliant line or it's significant, whatever. Is there any in other people's lyrics that just caught you and you go like, that's cool? Or
Oh yeah, all the time I'll hear a lyric and go, God, I wish I could have written that. What just came to mind when you said it is Tom Waits. I sleep like a baby with the snakes and the bugs. I woke up this morning to cold water. That is such a genius.
yeah, Tom Waits can get it
song.
done.
Yeah, he could get it done.
Yeah.
Another Tom Waits. How did the razor find my throat? I love that. Yeah, all the time. Of course, Dylan.
Yeah.
Waits, Bob Dylan. I mean, I remember the first time I heard the song Hurricane.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was about a real boxer, Reuben Hurricane Carter. I had no idea. I didn't follow boxing. And I was like, what a story. And I heard the whole story in my mind. And then when I found out later it was about this boxer, I was obsessed with this boxer. And I read his story. I saw the movie and I was, wow.
But there's a guy, Bob Dylan, who, I mean, he stood for a lot in his music.
Yes, he did.
Do you try to emulate some of that in what you're doing?
Absolutely. I mean, Dylan, I remember a musician in New York when I was still just breaking into the blues scene doing covers, a great bass player, substantially older, playing with Papa Chubby, actually, said to me, if you want to write your own songs, go buy the Dylan Book of Lyrics and let that be your Bible. So I did. I went out, I got everything Dylan, and a guy from Columbia Records, him and his girlfriend had started to take an interest in the band and wanted to do something. We almost did a deal with them, would just sent me everything recorded by Dylan and Leonard Cohen. It was such a gift. So I just immersed myself in those guys for lyrics. Not so much, because I'd been listening to great singers at this point, which, a lot of those great singers, the lyrics weren't as, deep as the voices were. Yeah. And then a lot of these great lyricists, the voices aren't as deep as their lyrics are.
Yes. That is what I like about your style, because your lyrics are right there, and then the way you express them, the way you convey them, that's the magic.
That's a high compliment, thank you.
Well, it's just the truth. I mean, it really is. That's when I love going to concerts. I've been doing it since I can remember. And certain people stay with you for whatever reasons. And very few people have all of that. You know what I mean? That wholeness, that the realness, the truth, and the ability to, come up with, it's your music, it's your feelings, and then you can convey that. And I can feel it.
Thank you.
Very few people, the special ones do that.
Wow.
Is there anybody around here now, like any of your contemporaries that you like, just, for one reason or another, you have a lot of respect for what they're doing?
I always have a tremendous amount of respect for, like, Papa Chubby. I just think, I remember when I first moved to New York, he was one of the first guys to let me get on stage. He was hard on me. You're not doing that right. You're not. He was like quite a mentor, but I think he's a really deep, soulful guy. I think he executes it in the guitar playing and that voice. Again, like I remember when I first saw him, he did That's How Strong My Love Is by Otis Redding, and I was blown away. So absolutely, Papa Chubby, as I've gotten to know the human being Walter Trout is, and I also think he's a great lyricist, great, all of it. Yeah. Devin is a dear buddy. Beth Hart, I just think she's like a sister from another mister. She's a soulmate, and she's somebody who really, took it from this level and is just soaring, and it did not come easy for her either. Right. She's a hard worker, just such a talent. There's a lot. I'm going to go blank now when people ask me that question. Girl, Sorry Shore, I've become friends with. She blew me away. We did this Lead Belly thing, and I remember first it was just sound check, and I was backstage. I hadn't met her yet, and I heard this voice. That was at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, that was recently.
We did a pre-thing at City Winery.
Oh, wow.
So I hadn't met her yet, and we were backstage, and I just heard this girl sound check, and I was like, what is that? And so it's very befitting that her album's a force of nature, because she really is. Then it turns out she's like the coolest human being on the planet. I think, we're going to have dinner soon. She rescues dogs, and She's just an amazing woman.
Real deal.
She's the real deal.
Yeah.
She's
How special is that?
It is.
Yeah.
It's so cool when you meet people like that. And now Scott Sherrard, you know, we're becoming friends, and I'm such a fan of him as a musician. We met on the Rock Legends cruise, and I was watching him play with Greg, and I was just like, this guy was funny because the spotlight was on. It was nighttime on the boat. The wind's blowing his hair, and he's taking this solo. And John and I, my guitarist and I, we're laughing like that. That's like a music video right there.
Sounds like a Whitesnake video.
Exactly. It was totally like an 80s rock video. But Scott and I met years ago when I first came on the scene, and I had forgotten that. You know, it was reminded to me when we both did an interview with a journalist. So yeah, there's some great ones out there in Devon, Mike Zito, you know, my label mates, really, Sam Fish. I think they're all just tremendous talents and great people.
Yeah. Devin's a super guy, man. That guy was so, again, gracious and humble.
He's a great dude, all heart.
You know, you mentioned about the Dylan lyrics. Did you happen to see that thing they did, the Lost Basement tapes?
Oh, yeah.
How cool was that?
It's amazing. And T-Bone Burnett producing it. It's like, I've seen just snippets here and there, and I keep saying to Kevin, my baby daddy, like, I just got to sit down and watch this, like, spend time with it.
I probably watched it half a dozen times.
See, now that's a great inspiration while I'm in the songwriting process. Now is the time if I got to sit with that
That's
more.
how I got turned on to Rhiannon Giddens.
Oh she's amazing.
Amazing. And the place she comes from is just so talented.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, she does a lot of the black history, like of slave music and stuff like that. She really gets
She's
into
from
some
Virginia or South Carolina.
North Carolina or something.
Carolina, yeah, because she was with the we met in Norway, funny enough.
Really?
And I remember she was the first singer, so I'm glad you brought them up because they were amazing. We were on this festival, Notodden, that I've done a few times, and she had just had a baby, and she brought the baby.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, you can do this.
Yeah, and her guitarist, I think, is from Bushwick, too.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
He's really good. And then, you know, they have some guy play some funky instrument, man. That's what I always like. Robert Plant had some guy playing some one string, whatever the heck it was. I have no idea what that thing is. But he was wailing on it. You have any ideas? That thing is. Yeah. Guy plays though, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm sitting there going, like, where do you find this?
I love when you see something like that.
Yeah.
There's a guy that comes out, seems like mostly in the winter, a Chinese guy who plays the saw in the park. Oh, I love it. He's got the saw and he's like,
Do you know Elephant Revival?
No.
Oh, man. Oh. Well, there's a guy, David Block, The Human Experience.
Okay.
He's just a music collaborator, musician, really talented guy. He was up on that ledge as well, playing it in Goni.
Oh,
Over the
I
ledge.
love that. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. This guy, well, he invited me to something, and we saw this, the girl was playing the saw. I mean, not playing, I mean, jamming.
Right.
On a saw.
Isn't that
I
amazing?
was a carpenter.
And it makes,
I couldn't make a living
my
with
brothers
a saw.
were all carpenters, my father too, so I'm with you. I'm like,
Jesus was a carpenter.
exactly, right?
That's what I used to get from people.
How do you make music on this thing?
Yeah, and that's talent.
It is.
Yeah, they're really an interesting group too. They're really good. Would you think maybe you'd play something? I mean, are you up into that or?
Sure.
Dana's going to perform for us "Walking in the Sun" from her upcoming album.
Things have been going wrong long enough to know that everything is right. I've been walking in the dark long enough to know I finally see the light. I've been losing long enough to know when I finally won. But even a blind man can tell when he's walking in the sun. I've cried enough tears to know it's feeling cold to smile. I've been bottom wrong sun, yeah. I'm walking in the sun now. In the sun, baby. Walking in the sun.
Wow. Wow, that was beautiful. Beautiful. I can't thank you enough.
was for
thank you
us.
so much. Yes, yes, for
Our
all of
story,
us.
all of us,
All of us,
exactly.
yeah. I can't thank you enough. This is such a treat. I mean, it's a special day for me, and you made it wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. And we can find DanaFuchs.com.
Yes, please.
Your website.
Yep.
Well, you know.
Fuchs, DanaFuchs.com. And please pledge away. I'm going to start getting even more creative with my pledge offers.
Yeah, it's great. If you haven't seen Dana Fuchs, you must see Dana Fuchs. It's an experience. She's the best. Like I said last time, cooler than the other side of the pillow.
Oh, love it.
Oh, all right. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
All right.
Scott.